So this is going to be a panel about creating real-world impact with on-chain solutions, moderated by Birch, with Zeugh, Laure and Mila Rioja. So give them a round of applause, and let's get this panel started.
Are we on? We're on. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's great to be with you at ETH Barcelona. I'm just curious, bit of audience participation. How many of you have been in this industry for less than a year? Okay. And how about more than 3 years? More than 5 years? Okay. So between 3 and 5 mostly. And how many of you had a moment where you thought, is this it? Like, is this what we're doing with this technology? Okay. All right, so you started first, and then everyone else was like, okay, I can say it now. Okay. Yeah, okay, right, okay, yes. It happens periodically, right? I mean, this is something I'm feeling when we're speaking to people at this conference. And that's great that you're here now, because I feel like this panel, we can talk about ways in which the technology that this whole industry is built around is actually making an impact. So without further ado, let's get into speaking to our speakers. So could you just give us a little intro about yourselves? And then also just tell us how you got into this particular part of the industry.
Okay, this is working. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Zeugh. I am a coordination-driven person. I got into the space pretty recently, actually. I'm in here for like playing full-time, full life DAO for 2 years now, and I got in like for real in crypto because of DAOs. Was kind of around taking a look at what was going on, but never too interested in the finance thing. But then DAOs were something that someone told me about, and then I also saw like a way where community experience, technology, and politics were put together in a way that improves them all. And those are like the backgrounds where I come from. I studied computer science, design. I was in politics for years. And I saw that was a very interesting space to build the things that I want to see change in the world. Mm-hmm. And well, it seemed like a good opportunity. I started working through the community side. I got into crypto and I saw those Discord servers, and I was like, dude, you guys are too smart to have such bad communities. Like, there's no way that you can do so much good stuff, but you cannot set up a Discord server. And I had been doing Discord servers for a few years before in gaming communities and for some products that we were launching in Web 2. And started working through that way, fall in love in governance, with tokenomic design, and well, been playing a little bit of all those parts since then.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that you had that traditional background with the tech skills and computer science, but even still, the intention, the direction into the industry was kind of not like, I guess, many people who come into this for the financial reasons. Lauren, what about yourself?
Hello. I'm Laure, and I got into this space at the end of 2020. My background is in mechanical engineering, and I studied that. I used to build ice making equipment, and I was really disillusioned with the life that I was part of, and just becoming, my mom's a holistic nutritionist, and my dad is kind of like a hippie who, when I was sick as a kid, used to do energy healing sessions with me. Wow. So I would really focus in on blue light shining on the parts of my body that needed to be healed. Anyway, I was getting increasingly disappointed with the systems that we were part of, with the medical industry, with the food that we were being told is food that's not really food. And I was also just really unhappy in my job. I was working really hard, driving to work, and just busting my ass for something I didn't really believe in, ice making equipment. So I left that, and I went traveling a bunch of places in the world and ended up at a permaculture farm in Costa Rica. And where basically I was, because I wanted to exit society. I wanted to just rage quit society, learn how to grow my own food, build a homestead, and just live a little happy, selfish life where I felt like I was connected to the earth. But then I met someone at this intentional community who worked with Giveth, which is where I currently work. And I got super inspired because, well, Giveth is a crypto donation platform whose focus is really on creating real-world impact with the tech that we're building in Web3. And so I kind of found this like magical merging of the tech world and the things that felt really important to me, which is like creating an impact and making a change in like, global systems, global coordination systems that I thought were broken, hence the wanting to exit society. And I thought, okay, I'll get back into society. And like, I got into Giveth, and now I'm a product lead, so I like coordinate and organize developers and build cool products for Giveth, and basically I'm really in the space and working really hard now again. It's kind of like before I was just like working my butt off all the time. I'm like working my butt off all the time, but the major difference now is that I feel like what I'm doing is actually potentially going to create an impact for the world.
Okay, fantastic. And how about yourself, Camilla?
In a very different way, shape, or form, I relate to everything that you said. My path is a little bit different, but a little bit similar to their path. I'm actually a lawyer by trade. I've done like law firms and the very traditional stuff for over 10 years. And at a certain point, I was like, why am I doing this way? Like, I'm a human being working 16 hours a day, looking for things in documents and document discovery and other ways to operate the law that sometimes like frustrates all of us. It was very complex to myself. So I was just like thinking about how to hack the law. But again, I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm not an engineer like these people here. Basically, we were trying to like plug and play solutions to offer different types of like services. And eventually, after exploring with different ones, with a bit of artificial intelligence, geometrics, which is something relevant to law, I got into blockchain and said, amazing. So now we can talk about like foundational systems for the society and how we connect with each other and do it in a more regenerative fashion. Okay, that's what I want to focus on. So I've been with the Salo community since 2021. Salo is a blockchain that has its mission, and actually I think the best way to introduce Salo is saying what Salo means. Salo is a word in Esperanto that means purpose. And the purpose of like the community of Salo is to build a regenerative like future that is available to all to the extent possible. So that's kind of where I matched, my thought line with a community that also goes in the same direction. So that's my crypto story.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Baram. So let's kind of get into what we're here to hear. So I'd like to try and de-sterilize the title of this talk a little bit, and I feel like it's something in the industry, there's a lot of very technical names, it's a technical industry, we get it, but like that can stop people really understanding what we're actually talking about. So what are on-chain solutions to you? Like, can you share what you're doing and try and put it in human terms? So yeah, Lauren, you're holding the mic, go for it.
Yeah, well, so one thing that I think is really important that we're building in this space is like new economic systems. I think that like, money makes things happen. And right now we have centralized governments who are issuing currency, and everybody's just agreed that this has value. And everybody's just agreed to kind of buy into the current systems that work well for society, which is largely capitalism. It's like make the best scarce goods and resources and like figure out the ways to make the most profit, and then you'll be successful as an individual or as a company in society. And this is just like totally broken systems. And I think what we're doing in Web3, like by creating new economies, by creating programmable money, is like we can decide if we want to issue currency for like what value creation. Like we can decide that we want to reward people and issue currency when they create an impact for their communities. So I think that's like something, it's like we can play with economic systems. We don't need to we don't even need to overthrow the current economic systems. We can start building the stuff that we're building. We've built the infrastructure, and now we're working like on DAOs and token utility and all these different like token engineering, and we're building on-chain economies that we can define the rules of. And when we define the rules, we can actually make it so that that people are successful when they help the world. And I think that's something that Giveth is really focused on. That's something that I really care about. And basically the whole reason that I'm here in this space. It's like, what are we doing all of this for if not to change the way that we're building society?
Okay, fantastic. Zeugh, what about you?
I like the on-chain part of the solutions a lot. Like, I think there is a lot of power in how we can create different economical systems like Laure brings. And we've been trying to do that outside of the government space for a very long time. Like having local currencies, having parallel currencies, having people go to jail because they're trying to build financial systems that are paper-based in a location and the federal government doesn't like it. So they put people in jail for terrorism, for example. And with on-chain solutions, with a big, massive computer running all around the globe, decentralized in the hands of thousands of different people and computers, we get some resilience, we get some censorship resistance that we don't have outside of that. That we're very bound by law and coercion and violence on the hands of whoever holds that on classical legacy money systems. With on-chain solutions, we can just get some of those things we're already doing and do them in a more resilient way, but we can also create new things. Like Giva, for example, is like one of the amazing examples for that, like imagining new logics that would not only get to improve things we were already doing, like find a better way to do them, but we can also find ways to make them more complex because they're able to run by themselves in lots of parts of it. So I like the possibility that doing those things on the blockchain brings, especially because of how we can protect whoever's doing it. Yeah, I think that's the beautiful part of being on-chain solutions for the impact.
And what about yourself? I mean, how does yours compare to these two?
So it's interesting because I like to travel or inhabit like different spheres. And one of the things that is of utmost interest for myself is like what we call public goods in Web3 and the existing public goods that we have in our world, in our countries, and how we relate to them. So one of the things that I care about deeply is what are the benefits of our mindset on Web3, but also what are the needs that we currently face on the societies and like groups that we inhabit, and how can we make things, you know, more like our mindset and like maybe creative problem solving for things that we have on a daily basis. So one example of that would be one experience that the blockchain community has done last year with the Brazilian government. So all the governments, they have public goods, right? They're managing our public goods as far as I am concerned. I'm sure there must be exceptions. But in Brazil specifically, these public goods, they encompass, for instance, the beaches and the islands and the beautiful forest and some public buildings that sometimes are underutilized. So what if the management of these public goods were done on-chain? What if we had more awareness about like the value and also give different uses for these public goods? What if through this type of interactions, we could have like a better management of resources or better opportunities, or put into place some of the things that we are experimenting on Web3, but actually related to like, you know, slightly closer problems, right? Problems of the neighborhoods that we are in or the communities that we come from. So when I think about like on-chain solutions, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, we are creating value in different ways in the Web3, but like what is the ultimate, like, I don't know, flip switch that we could have by actually like having different types of interactions with very distant entities and bodies. So when I think about on-chain, that's what comes to mind.
Okay, thanks for sharing. So let's bring in the second part of the title, the real world impact. I mean, we've all been in this industry for enough time to know that there's a lot of lofty ideas, big promises, this is going to change the world. Like, how are these fantastic things you're talking about actually having an impact? So could you give some examples from your experience?
Well, I think that when we think about impact, we normally get this NGO view as the whole thing. I think that like the perspective of NGOs, of governments, is a part. It's the most normal and fast to deliver one we have. But I think that some of the examples that come to my mind might not be as directly related. For example, this last couple of years, things that I've been involved with that I found super interesting to watch the impact evolve. I think the first one that comes to mind would be Assange DAO, when we use like Juicebox protocol to raise millions of dollars for Julian Assange legal defense, which in my mind is something that has pretty significant impact in the world, fighting for like legally defending the civil rights of someone fighting for freedom in a cypherpunk perspective. But also there are things like Africa Alliance DAOs, project that I've recently became involved, where we're using DeFi to make small loans available for medium and small companies in Africa that would not get access to banks. Like in about 1 year running, we've run over $2 million into the African continent in the hands of small business that would need that money to leverage themselves to further improve what they're doing, or to, let's say, a taxi driver that has to fix their car and it depends on the car to make the money and won't get money from a bank. Like just simple solutions that not necessarily would have to be on-chain, but making them on-chain not only makes them more resilient, but in this case also makes them way, way more accessible for those who want to get access to those resources. I think those are two very different examples. So like bringing access to finance, or bringing access to legal defense, or improving access to legal defense. Not like Julian Assange wouldn't have a legal defense by himself if he didn't raise millions of dollars on-chain, if the family didn't raise millions of dollars on-chain for the project, but it's still something that comes from an on-chain creation to go out of chain. That money is cashed out, so it's no longer on-chain, and touches different parts of it. Of course, there are many more examples, but I think those are the ones I can bring that differ a little bit more from what I already know a bit from GiveUp and Cello. So I think it's nice extra perspectives on it.
Okay, I mean, taxi drivers, Julian Assange, we're covering all parts of the spectrum, right? By the way, please make sure you scan the app to ask any questions, if you have any, as we come through, and we can ask them as we go along, but we'll also leave time at the end. Camilla, maybe you could give some examples of the real-world impact that you're seeing and part of.
So one of the things that strikes me, it's also about when you're looking into different industries, when people mean impact, usually the headline that you're going to see on the newspapers, it's going to be about money, right? X, Y, or Z, whatever capital deployed to X, Y, or Z company, and people look at these numbers and then they go, oh, amazing, money. And a lot of what we have seen also on Web3 has been related to speculation, right? So getting away from that and thinking about impact as real world solutions that have like usability, for me, strikes a better nerve and has like a better application. Examples of that can be, for instance, financial inclusion protocols such as like Good Dollar or impact marketing, right? Like UBI is such a relevant theme under different perspectives. A bit on the legislative side, a lot of people don't know, but Brazil already has a UBI legislation. I don't know, I think for 18 years now or something like that. So in theory, UBI is something that should exist in Brazil, but like destining money to something like that is complex. So how could potentially, right, Web3 ways of thinking and hacking bring a different type of like capital to support this type of initiatives that we are already experimenting with? Right, gain forest. So whenever you think about like family agriculture, everybody here is drinking coffee from Agtech Hub. Thank you for keeping us awake in different conferences. So when you think about like real world use cases and things that make our lives, happen the way they are, that's what means like impact to me. And I know it's hard nowadays to quantify such an impact, in the light of maybe a headline of a story that says X million dollars deployed to something versus, hey, a community now can like trade on their own terms and are finding better ways to build their houses and to eat sustainably based on technology applied to design in their local conditions. It's complex, but it's where my head usually goes to. It's hard to justify, but it's...
Laura, maybe you could share your perspective from the work you're doing with Giveth, and also so focusing on the real world impact, but also factoring in, like you were saying, these new kind of structures and how that changes the notion of giving.
Yeah, definitely. So when I think about on-chain solutions for real-world impact, I mean, a lot of the work that I'm doing with Giveth is really related to that. And I mean, the first thing that we're doing, and I think the first place we need to start, is kind of like reaching people where they're at with systems that they understand, and then slowly starting to introduce like blockchain elements into that. So Giveth is a donation platform, and we're focused on making it easy for nonprofits to onboard into the Web3 space, but providing them with a donation platform that's like blockchain based, and so uses the benefits of like self-sovereignty and decentralization. And I can think of like actually like some very specific examples of like how this is an improvement of like the regular ways that we do impact. And actually just recently I was at a conference in East Waterloo, and somebody brought this up to me because they were like, "You're Canadian, don't you care about this thing?" And basically what happened, so over a year ago, about a year ago, there were these protests in Canada. Truckers were protesting against getting vaccinated against COVID because they didn't want to, and they had to in order to like keep crossing borders and keep delivering these shipments. So they started this like protest campaign, and people were donating to them on GoFundMe. But because GoFundMe is a centralized platform, basically GoFundMe can hold the donations, can like say like, sorry, you can't have the donations, and that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. It was like the funds, people were donating, and like regardless of whatever you think about the cause, it's like people were donating to a cause that they believed in, and their funds weren't actually reaching the people that they were trying to target. And what was worse is that then like Canada was deciding to then try to freeze the bank accounts of people who even donated. And it's like, wow, you put your money in banks, you're not in control of your funds anymore. But if you keep your money in a decentralized wallet, or if you keep your money in a hardware wallet, like, don't share your seed phrase, and like that's yours, it's your responsibility. Nobody can just say like, sorry, actually I know it was yours, but now it's mine. So this is like one just like very simple example of like once we introduce blockchains and we introduce like self-sovereign wallet stewardship and custody, then we can actually make sure that people's funds are going to fund the impact that they care about. And that's just like one simple example. And then like, but what we're doing with Giveth, and what actually I see in the Web3 space in general, is then trying to like use the fact that we can program our money to do whatever we want to create new innovative ways of funding public goods. Like donations are great, but they still require somebody to sacrifice and put up money to fund something and like really expect nothing in return. They just like are trying to make an impact, so they like give their money to that cause.
So is this work you're doing going some way to reduce like donor dependency, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, what we're seeing in the Web3 space is like new innovative ways of first improving the donation space, and then like even moving away from the donation space. Like improving the donation space, there's things like quadratic funding. It's like large donors feel more comfortable donating to a matching pool, and then they trust that the community is going to distribute those funds to the projects they believe in a democratic way. And so this is something that's like been developed in Web3, and Gitcoin has done like tons of work at making quadratic funding super successful, and has like they've raised and funded public goods like through the quadratic funding rounds with like something like $30 million, or maybe it's now $40 million. So it's like, it's still donations, there's still a donation component to it, but it's like donations like amped up on a next level where we're using these on-chain solutions. We can actually like get more funding going to causes and people creating more impact in a way that just feels better for everyone. It feels better for the large donors to the matching pool because they trust that their funds are going to causes that are important to the community. And it feels better for people who only have a small amount of money to donate because like they know that their small $1, $5 donation can actually help direct even more funding to the causes that they care about. So it's an extremely powerful mechanism. And like we're actually building quadratic funding within Giveth. It's a product I'm working on right now, and we're hoping to launch really soon. So we're raising funds for our matching pool and are going to be distributing funds to projects in QF. So those are just like two examples. And then you see other things like Optimism's retroactive public goods funding. It's like, what is that? You know, Optimism is putting up OP tokens and they're rewarding value that was already created instead of rewarding value that's like via grants instead of rewarding ideas. And so it's like another way in Web3, it's like Optimism has the funding to distribute to things that like to public goods projects retroactively. And this is something that like we aren't seeing in the regular donation space. That's actually like creating an impact and empowering people to be able to build projects and kind of like start to create this like trust cycle that like also they will be rewarded for that afterwards. So, I mean, there's just like so many amazing things, so many organizations, Giveth, Optimism, Gitcoin, that are like creating these systems that are making it possible to fund public goods in new and innovative ways that we've never seen before in just like our regular like donate through GoFundMe, and GoFundMe holds it and takes a cut.
Okay, thank you. So just going with the systems that are being created, where are we seeing these systems implemented? Perhaps you could talk about where you're actively seeing impact, and also why are these new structures and systems working, and why are they needed within the places you're operating? Camilla, maybe you could start.
So while listening to her talking, I feel that we could maybe try to, or I could maybe try to talk about three things at once, which is like public goods, right? The impact and the regenerative aspect. When you're talking about like, oh, somebody's giving the money, like what is the sustainability model of these actions, right? And we need to think about like better ways about on how to make economically stable systems that are using like KPIs that we can all trust or at least agree in a minimal viable way, just to make this like closed loop economies. Otherwise, this is just simply not sustainable, and like a bear market comes, no money is available, all the projects stop, and maybe families and communities are hurting. So when we talk about like regenerative finances, like refi, this is a rather loose concept. Different people see it in different ways, but one of the things that we talk about is like positive externalities, right? So a system that doesn't stand on its own 2 feet doesn't have necessarily like positive externalities, and it's something that's fragile because it's subject to like market conditions or to like changes in the legislation. So thinking about things from a perspective of like the foundational perspective of this is very relevant, because like I personally see technology as a tool, can be used like in different ways, shapes, or forms, but to actually have a real embedded role in the society, we need to like get away only from looking at the functionality of things, but looking at like systems. How does this, or what like type of entities or partnerships or corporations they need to take place, just so we have like systems that are working, right? And
okay, so where and how are these things taking place? Maybe you can give us some good examples.
So I would just, sorry for not going in, but I'll actually zoom out just to talk about like perspective, because whenever I'm Brazilian, by the way, and whenever people talk about like Brazil or Latin America, sometimes I feel that there's a general way of generalizing things. I've heard so many times like, let's bank the unbanked in Brazil, woohoo! And I'm like, over 70, according to MasterCard, not me, 73% of the unbanked people were banked during the COVID because of amazing neobanks during their working. I think, if I'm not mistaken, like the Brazilian banking system won the prize of second most advanced like banking system in the world, only losing to Singapore. So when we talk about like where are these advancements coming, we need to really have a grassroots approach in which like it is the local communities that are like signaling what is the type of initiatives that make sense for them, because the use cases for real world crypto, they are different in these places. So very quickly around Latin America, in Brazil it's more institutional ways of like using crypto. So it's big companies, or it's like even the government itself. It's a different kind of play. If you go to Venezuela or Colombia, you can talk a lot about like peer-to-peer things. In Peru, there has been seen a lot of DAOs activities. In Mexico, it's been hard for different reasons, but maybe mainly like legislation, right? Although some people are thriving. So I just wanted to like step out, and maybe my Brazilian friend can step in with larger use cases, but I just wanted to bring a little bit of this like awareness when we talk about things that are outside Europe and the United States.
Yeah, Zeugh, actually on that note, it would be interesting to hear your experiences of working with projects that are focused on Africa. Maybe you could give us a little bit of background about why you think this region is important, and some of your observations about the work you've been doing there.
Sure. Yeah, I've been trying to focus like my personal projects into building around South America and Africa. The one I have a little bit more background to talk about is the Africa DeFi Alliance that I was talking before, but all over like any conference I've been in either of the two continents, I see a lot of what Mila is bringing here, like the idea of coming from grassroots, right? One of the main points why I see like this development being interesting in those areas is because we're playing an infinite game. Finance is not a game that someone wins at a certain point. It goes on, and what we can do is change how it works, how the rules are set, how the game is played. And the way you want to change the rules, considering that finance is a territorial-based game, right? You don't want to try to start changing the rules right on the most highly dominated territory by the currently winning player. So you don't want to start to try and change the rules in New York. This is hard. The big player is right there. 13 aircraft carriers just around. You're not necessarily going to do that in London or Europe. It's hard to play where the rules are not so disadvantageous.
So in a way, you're kind of choosing the path of least resistance, and also an area where you potentially have the most impact as well.
Yeah, it's places where we can play. Like if you want to look at real-world impact, there's a lot of real-world impact of doing a token that's a security in the US. You're going to jail. That's real-world impact. You know, like depending on how you move things and where you move things, real-world impact can be good or bad. You can like get trouble to come from on-chain solutions that are not well thought, because it is a game with an adversary. One of the nice real-world impacts that I see, like coming back to the grassroots thing in Brazil, is like called Agroforest DAO. They're using a DAO model to sell NFTs to fund farmers to plant beans, and you can burn those NFTs later to claim those beans. So you're actually funding creating food. You're like challenging food industry in the logic of lots of middlemen or intermediaries, and you're just like going through a decentralized decision structure with distribution straight to the funders. Like this is a type of use of something that is very common for, I guess, mostly everyone here. Sell NFTs, join a DAO, vote things. Basic things if you're in the ETH Web3 space, but outside of that, it's not so normal, and it does give you some advantages. Or for example, Africa Alliance, like bringing just something that should be simple, money that you can pay for in the future. You're like, sure, you can give that money back, but you still can get a loan to like solve the problem you have now. So those are like small things again and again that start giving people an advantage to play the game, whatever game they're playing in their local territory, and move forward with it, coming from on-chain solutions. I think it's some small but impactful examples as they pile up together.
Mila, jump in.
Sorry, can I just jump in 1 second in there? Just because, like, and this is the thing I think collectively we could do, like, in conferences, because this is a closed loop system. I'm going back to Agroforest DAO, okay? Everybody here needs to eat. I traveled to very little places where people claimed they didn't have to, and usually they were taking it from the sun, allegedly, but we all have to eat. So a model like this. Okay, we all need to eat. The standard Brazilian food is rice and beans. And these are two of the things that they are like doing. So you know how much you spend on like rice and beans in a year. You can like prepay some of this to them. The risk that you're incurring is that if something happens to the crop, your average price of your rice and beans may go a little bit up because you're losing it, and maybe you're asking to somebody else. When you need like liquidity, these people may need some sort of like incentives to grow their production or whatever. But we can think about this like in a small scale that you do in one neighborhood, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. Oh, marvelous, Camila. This works so well for Brazil, but in my country specifically, we don't have this availability to produce like food, like you're talking about. I went to Panama once, and Panama, like they told me, there actually means abundance on butterflies and fishes, and I was like in love with it because it's such a refined concept. And this is what I have, like in terms of abundance, and other countries have other stuff. Some countries may have amazing developers in a very complex weather in which they. So how can we understand each other's like strengths and weaknesses and work in a regenerative fashion, you know, to like have not a zero-sum game, but a plus game, you know, in which we are actually seeing what the problems are and working like to diminish them and not to like exploit and explode this kind of things.
And I think something that's really important to like what you guys are related to what you guys are both talking about, and an opportunity that we have just as these like global Ethereum conference goers is to really get to know the communities that we're part of like while we're there. Like we go to all of these conferences, but there's not really actually a lot of activities to see like what are the needs of the local people, or what do the local people even know about crypto, or what on-chain solutions could really benefit people who are already doing impact work. So I'd love to just mention also, like, if you haven't already, you should definitely visit the Giveth booth, because this is one of the things that we're doing with Giveth is we're running impact quests. And our goal is basically, like, we have a variety of impact quests. Some of them are like pick up trash on your way to the conference and take a picture of you throwing it out. Some of them are bring some non-perishable food and donate it at the Giveth booth, and we'll bring it to a local food bank. And then we have other ones, like we have projects on Giveth that we were specifically looking around in the Barcelona area, people who are focusing on Catalonian culture, or we have projects that are supporting people who are like trapped in the Mediterranean Sea trying to like escape countries at war. So there are Barcelona-based nonprofits on Giveth that are raising funds in crypto that you can donate to right now. And just by being here in Barcelona, you could get to know these communities, and you could get to know these people who are creating impact. The Trusted Seed also ran a day trip a day before the conference, and they actually walked around Barcelona-based co-ops where people were actually starting to create their own economies, not using crypto stuff, but like creating their own community currencies and then trading in between different communities. And then eventually, all of these individual co-ops decided to adopt the same currency that they would use to trade amongst each other. So it's like, what are we doing at this conference just talking to each other when we could also go out and start talking to these people who are in these co-ops and seeing like how they are issuing this currency, how they are using it to trade, what are the obstacles, and then start informing our work better. I feel like we often will just like run, I often, and I think many people do, but I do it all the time, is just like I get really trapped in my box of the thing that I'm building, and I forget to actually look around me. And like, so I would really just invite everybody here to check out what's actually going on in Barcelona and what impact you can actually create, and see if you can use it to influence and inject ideas into the crypto projects that you're already building. And if you're interested in that at all, you should come by the Giveth booth and hang out with us, and we'll talk about it some more.
Okay, yeah. Let's ask a question as we're getting towards the end now. I can read. So we have a question from the audience. What are the limiting factors of onboarding new protocols / business into funding public goods?
Honestly, one of the biggest things that I see being in this like let's onboard real world nonprofits. Is off-ramps, like off-ramps. People get donations in crypto and then they're like, but I need real money. What's XDAI, you know? Or like, you know, and finding like bridges and finding ways just to turn their money into cash. We don't have good global solutions for that. So we try our best at Give Us to create like a list of resources, of exchanges that people could use in different countries. But right now it's like everything is so like based on like where you are and what are like the particular legislations for your country and like are you paying taxes and what is your business model, that it becomes this huge obstacle. Like in the crypto world, even I think in the crypto space, like people like me among friends will like pay each other back in crypto, but then it's like when it's like, okay, crypto to cash, it's like, how is everybody doing that? Everybody's doing it in a different way. So I think we need better off-ramping solutions, or we need like better crypto adoption where like businesses and communities in the real world are actually starting to accept and use crypto.
Or and, because I don't like or, I like and. Think about things from a local perspective and solve things in a local way. So I would like to, like, as you inspired me to maybe throw a quest here, why don't we make it official in a way that whenever like Ethereum is doing a conference in a different country, we pre-run some sort of like quest or exercise. We understand some of the real problems that that region has. We have one specific track on the hackathon who is actually going to solve a real world problem for that community, and we leave our impact there. How many cities do we travel? Sometimes there's not like, sometimes, okay, we could have potentially like a global solution for something, but maybe it's not the time. Maybe we should be thinking like local and small and making this thing work, and then thinking about how scaling it. And if you guys need help, if anybody wants to hack on this in Latin America, count on me.
Zeugh, you want to jump in?
Yeah, it's something that I've been looking for. Like, that would be one of the coolest things we could do. Like, when we get together to those spaces, to like, okay, let's hack, but let's get 3 days together here and, okay, how do we solve something in Barcelona? We're in Barcelona. What is the problem? Let's find a solution. Bunch of creators with bunch of resources, with bunch of skills, and a bunch of problems just outside the wall. But we'll get in here, we'll get hotel, we'll get bar, we'll get party, we'll get airplane, and bye-bye. That feels a bit weird. I would love to see that.
Choose one NGO, one governmental thing, one whatever. Okay, so this is a public promise, right?
Let's make it happen.
You too? Okay.
Okay, there's an element of reluctance there in the middle. Okay, is there anyone in the audience who might have a question? Anyone? Don't be shy.
Yes.
You guys talked a lot about how to create impact at some of these next events. What are you most excited about? Are you in the future events that we're going to be doing if you're going to be pushing these agendas?
I really want to see DAOs take space as an obvious way for us to coordinate. Like, I really think there's, no matter what we're creating now, it's going to be obsolete soon. It's going to be awesome to be able to create impact, but the most impact will always come from people who are having the issue and have a community that faces it together locally and being able to use a very efficient way to organize and find solutions. So not DAO as a general thing, but like frameworks of how to run a group of people to do this, to solve this problem. Oh, so you can replicate it around. I think this is something I'm very, very excited for. Frameworks for anyone to copy, paste, adapt to local environment, local context, and run by themselves. I think that autonomy is amazing. Will be amazing pretty soon once we go a bit further.
Yeah, I think, I mean, coordination mechanisms are huge. I think, but I am not sure that there's going to be like one size fits all coordination mechanism for everybody. But if we can build like coordination toolkits and people could pick and choose which ones they can apply to their local community, then that's really going to be an amazing way that we can like really create real world impact. Because like for some communities, quadratic funding would work great. For other communities, you would want to use just straight donations, or maybe you would want to use retroactive public goods funding. And like we need to have like I think something that I think we need more of, and something I'd be excited to see is like really taking our ideas and then making them into digestible packaged things that then we could share with real world impact projects.
Okay, Camilla, just because we have 1 minute left, did you want to quickly add something?
It's like, and it's a very quite happy. Really, no, I'm kidding. It's super simple. Managing public goods. I mean, real world public goods like governments and institutions and stuff on chain. More visibility to whatever is public, and us making our part on helping like things get better, and a little bit more of like privacy and quality for individuals. So shifting the focus.
Okay, well, everyone, thank you very much for your attention. Let's get a round of applause for our fantastic panel.
And our moderator.
Thank you.
Enjoy the conference.